When a man believes that you will always be there, waiting patiently for him to come around, he begins to take your presence for granted. It's not always out of malice, it's human nature. We tend to value what we think could slip through our fingers, but when something feels permanent, we stop paying attention. This is why silence and absence can be far more powerful than any words you could ever say. Instead of explaining, just stop showing up in the spaces where you used to be so available. Instead of chasing, step back into your own world, your own priorities, and your own life. That absence becomes a mirror he never expected to look into. He feels it. He notices it. And the most powerful part, you didn't have to demand his attention. You simply removed yourself from the equation. Silence does something that talking never can. Words give him something to respond to, defend against, or dismiss, but silence forces him to sit with himself. It leaves unanswered questions swirling in his mind. It creates a vacuum, and human beings are wired to fill a vacuum. When you used to call, text, or check in, he had no reason to wonder where you were or what you were doing. But when you disappear into your own life without fanfare or announcement, suddenly he's faced with the question, where is she? That question grows louder the longer you don't answer it. This isn't about playing games. It's about shifting your energy back to yourself. Instead of pouring your time into someone who is not meeting you halfway, you give that time to yourself, your goals, your friendships, your passions. And in doing so, you become less predictable, less reachable, and far more intriguing. Men may not always admit it, but they are deeply affected by absence. A man can go about his day distracted by work, friends, or hobbies, but when a woman he thought was always within reach suddenly isn't there, it triggers something deep in his psychology. It's in the silence that he starts to remember moments you shared, things you said, the way you laughed, the energy you brought. He realizes those things are no longer accessible to him. And without you there to fill his days with reminders of your presence, the contrast between having you and not having you becomes sharp. This contrast wakes him up in a way that conversations or pleas for attention never could. Silence and absence also give you power because you're no longer operating from a place of reaction. When you step back, you're no longer caught up in whether he texts back, whether he calls, whether he makes a plan. You're not waiting on his energy, you're creating your own. And ironically, it's in this moment of detachment that he starts to feel the pull. Not because you begged him to care, but because you stopped making it easy for him not to. A man who thought you'd always wait now has to confront the reality that maybe you won't. And that realization, as subtle as it might be at first, begins to grow. He starts to wonder if he misjudged you, if he misread the depth of your independence, if maybe you have options he overlooked. That quiet wondering turns into a kind of restlessness. And restlessness is the spark that can reignite desire. You are not obligated to fill the silence for anyone. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop showing up for people who only meet you halfway. Let the absence speak. Let the silence echo. And when it does, he will feel the weight of what he thought he could keep without effort. When you disappear instead of waiting, you send a message without uttering a single word. Your time is valuable, your presence is a privilege, and you will not place your life on hold for anyone. This realization often strikes a man far harder than any conversation or confrontation could. It's one thing for him to hear you say you won't wait forever. It's another for him to experience that truth in real time. Suddenly, you're no longer where you used to be. You're not showing up in his inbox. You're not making yourself available for last minute plans, and you're not lingering in his orbit. That shift is powerful because it forces him to confront the idea that you are moving forward with or without him. A man who thought you would wait often assumes he has all the time in the world to figure things out. He imagines that your connection is frozen in place, waiting patiently for him to return to it when he's ready. But when you choose to live your life fully instead, that illusion shatters. He sees you thriving, making moves, enjoying experiences, and surrounding yourself with people who value you. That image plants a seed of urgency in his mind. The more he realizes you are not standing still, the more he understands that the door to you is not permanently open. Your absence isn't just a lack of presence, it's the presence of your independence. You're showing him, without trying to prove anything, that you are not defined by his choices or his timeline. Instead of being the woman who waits on the sidelines hoping he will notice her, you become the woman who is too busy living to worry about whether he's paying attention. And ironically, this is often when his attention sharpens. Human psychology is drawn to what we can't easily have, and when you were always available, he didn't have to think twice about access to you. But now that access is gone, and he realizes it's not guaranteed to return. There's something deeply unsettling for a man when he senses he's losing a woman who once gave freely of her time, love, and energy. It stirs a mix of curiosity, regret, and even a touch of panic. He may not say it out loud, but internally he starts to run through questions. Is she over me? Did I underestimate her worth? Has someone else stepped into the place I took for granted? These thoughts chip away at the comfort he once had in believing you'd be there no matter what. What makes this so impactful is that you're not staging a performance. You're not pretending to move on. You are moving on. That authenticity is what resonates. It's not about making him jealous or playing a game. It's about genuinely choosing yourself over waiting in uncertainty. And because it's real, the energy you project is different. You're no longer looking over your shoulder to see if he's watching. You're facing forward, creating a life that excites you. That is what catches his eye. Over time, this quiet but firm message starts to sink in. He realizes that he can't assume you'll always be an option. And the weight of that realization can be a turning point, either pushing him to step up or forcing him to accept the loss. But whichever way it goes, you've already won because you refuse to let your life be put on hold for someone who wasn't ready to meet you where you stand. When a man thinks you will wait and you disappear instead, one of the most profound effects is the way it shifts the balance of power in his mind. He may have believed that he was the one holding the cards, that your feelings, loyalty, and patience were fixed elements in the equation. But the moment you remove yourself, that equation changes completely. Suddenly, you are not the predictable constant he thought you were. You've broken the pattern, and that disruption forces him to reevaluate everything he assumed about you and the connection you shared. Men often operate under the unconscious belief that consistency equals permanence. If you've been there through his indecision, his mixed signals, and his moments of distance, he assumes that will always be the case. He takes comfort in that stability, even if he doesn't fully appreciate it. But when you walk away quietly and without fanfare, you send a shock wave through that comfort zone. The absence of your presence is more powerful than the presence of your words could ever be. It unsettles him because suddenly he's not in control of the situation anymore. You're no longer waiting for him to call, you're not chasing clarity, and you're not holding your breath for him to decide. You've reclaimed your emotional energy and redirected it toward yourself, your goals, and your peace. This is not only liberating for you, it's magnetic to him. People are naturally drawn to those who seem to hold their own power, and your decision to remove yourself from the dynamic shows him that your value isn't tied to his recognition of it. The truth is, the psychological shift in this moment is huge. Before, he might have thought of you as the safe option, the person who would always be there if and when he finally got his act together. Now that certainty is gone. He realizes he can't predict your moves anymore. And unpredictability triggers curiosity and pursuit. The human mind is wired to notice what's no longer easily accessible. And in your absence, you become far more intriguing than when you were always within reach. This shift doesn't just make him think about you, it makes him think about himself. It forces him to confront the fact that his inaction or complacency had consequences. He may begin to see patterns in his behavior that have cost him not just you, but other opportunities in his life. And whether he admits it or not, that awareness can be deeply uncomfortable. It's one thing to know you're losing something valuable. It's another to realize you lost it because you didn't show up when it mattered. The beauty of this shift is that it happens without you lifting a finger to convince him of anything. You're not sending pointed messages or posting calculated updates to get his attention. You're simply living in alignment with your worth. That quiet confidence speaks louder than anything you could have said, and it's what makes the change in dynamics so undeniable. In the end, he can choose how to respond to that shift. He can step up and meet you at your level, or he can watch from a distance as you move forward without him. But either way, the balance of power has changed forever, and you've shown him in the clearest way possible that you are never a guaranteed option, only a chosen one. One of the most powerful truths a man faces when you disappear instead of waiting is the realization that attention and presence are privileges, not guarantees. He may have believed that your time, energy, and care were things he could access whenever it suited him. As long as he kept you in his orbit with occasional gestures or minimal effort, he thought he could maintain the connection indefinitely. But the moment you vanish from his life, without warning or explanation, you deliver a lesson that hits harder than any confrontation could. The access he once had to you has been revoked, and he can no longer take it for granted. When a man truly begins to process your absence, it isn't just about missing your company. It's about feeling the loss of the energy you brought into his life. Your laughter, your attention to the details of his world, the way you supported and understood him, these things don't just disappear quietly in his mind. They echo. They leave a space that nothing else quite fills in the same way. And that absence starts to weigh on him, not just as an emotional loss, but as a sharp contrast to the complacency he once felt when you were always around. Your disappearance is also a mirror that forces him to see the imbalance in the relationship dynamic. He might have been giving you breadcrumbs, just enough to keep you engaged, but never enough to truly commit. You stepping away breaks that cycle. You've essentially told him without a single word that you will not live off scraps when you know you deserve the whole meal. That clarity is intimidating because it means he has to either step up or lose you entirely. There's no middle ground anymore. In many cases, this is the first time he begins to truly respect your boundaries. Boundaries aren't about telling someone what they can or can't do. They're about deciding what you will and won't allow in your life. By leaving, you've set the most unshakable boundary of all. If he doesn't value you enough to prioritize you, then he doesn't get to have you at all. And while this may sting his pride, it also commands his attention in a way no argument or ultimatum could. Over time, he may begin to replay moments in his mind, wondering where he could have acted differently, what signs he ignored, and how he misjudged your patience. That self-reflection can be uncomfortable, even painful, but it's also often the spark that ignites genuine change. The realization that someone remarkable was willing to walk away from him can awaken a deeper understanding of what it means to truly value and cherish another person. Your quiet exit communicates something that words can't capture. You have your own life, your own sense of fulfillment, and you will not shrink yourself or pause your journey for someone who isn't meeting you halfway. That message is clear, not just in the action of leaving, but in the way you carry yourself after. You're not seeking validation, you're not waiting for a reaction, and you're not performing your independence for his attention. You're simply living it. In the end, he is left with two undeniable truths. Losing you was not about you punishing him, it was about you protecting yourself. And if he ever wants the privilege of being close to you again, it will require effort, respect, and the recognition that you are not someone who waits in the background for his convenience. You are someone who chooses, and he must now prove why he should be chosen again. When you choose to walk away instead of waiting, you send a message that resonates far beyond the surface, one that touches his ego, his emotions, and his sense of control. Key point 5 is about the undeniable shift that happens when he realizes you're not just bluffing, not just pulling away to get a reaction, but truly removing yourself from the equation. This isn't a game, it's a declaration that your worth is not tied to his recognition of it. And for many men, that realization hits like a wave they never saw coming. Up until that moment, he may have thought he had time to figure things out, time to come around, time to decide what he really wanted. That belief gave him a sense of security, even if it was unearned. He counted on your presence being constant, even if his effort was inconsistent. When you're gone, that safety net vanishes. The comfort of knowing you'll always be there is replaced with the sharp edge of uncertainty. Suddenly, he can't predict your next move, and that unpredictability creates a kind of tension that demands his full attention. This is where the psychological shift begins. When someone knows they can lose you, the stakes change. His mind starts replaying every interaction, wondering if he misread the signs or underestimated your willingness to walk away. That mental rewind often reveals the subtle moments when you tried to communicate your needs, times he brushed off your feelings or assumed they could be addressed later. But later never came, and now he's forced to confront the truth that those missed moments have consequences. Your disappearance also changes the power dynamic. Before, he may have been the one controlling the rhythm of the relationship, when you spoke, when you saw each other, how deep the emotional connection went. But by leaving, you've taken that control back without asking for permission. You're no longer moving in reaction to his pace. You've set your own. That independence can be unsettling for him because it dismantles the comfort of thinking he holds all the influence. Now, he has to grapple with the fact that you are the one who decides the terms of access to your life. There's also a deep emotional undercurrent here that many people don't recognize. When you leave without bitterness, without theatrics, it carries even more weight. You're not trying to hurt him. You're not seeking revenge. You're simply removing yourself from a situation that doesn't honor you. That quiet strength lingers in his mind because it shows self-respect, and self-respect is magnetic. It's a quality that can't be faked and one that often makes him realize he underestimated your inner strength. As time passes, he may start to feel the ripple effects of your absence in unexpected ways. Little things will remind him of you, your perspective on life, the way you listened without judgment, the encouragement you gave when he doubted himself. Those moments will stand out, not because they were ordinary, but because they were uniquely yours, and now they're gone. The emptiness left behind isn't just about losing a person, it's about losing a presence that made him feel understood and grounded. Ultimately, walking away solidifies a truth. He may have avoided acknowledging love and commitment cannot be sustained on assumption alone. By choosing yourself over waiting for him, you've drawn a clear line that says you will not be a placeholder in someone else's indecision. And that kind of boundary doesn't just change the way he sees you, it changes the way he sees himself. If he ever wants to cross paths with you again in a meaningful way, he'll know it requires more than words or promises. It demands real, consistent action. When you vanish from his life, the silence you leave behind becomes louder than any argument, louder than any plea for change you might have voiced before. Key point 6 is about the profound psychological effect of that silence and how it forces a man to confront what he has lost. Humans, by nature, tend to take for granted what feels secure and accessible. As long as you were there, even in the background, he could subconsciously assure himself that he still had time, that your connection wasn't going anywhere. But when you disappear, that assumption shatters, and in its place grows a deep sense of absence that no distraction can fully erase. That absence isn't just about missing a person, it's about the sudden void where once there was consistency, care, and presence. You might have been the one who checked in on him without being asked, the one who understood his moods, the one who celebrated his wins and stood beside him in his losses. These small acts often go unnoticed until they're gone. Now, in the quiet, he's left with a gnawing realization. There's no one to fill that role the way you did, because it wasn't just about companionship, it was about the way you saw him, the way you made him feel understood in a world that rarely offers that. Men who are used to emotional steadiness from a woman often don't understand how much they depend on it until it's removed. In the beginning, he might try to distract himself, convincing himself that life goes on, that you'll reach out eventually. But with every day that passes without a word from you, the truth becomes harder to ignore. You're not waiting, you're not lingering, and you're not holding space for him in the way you once did. That awareness turns into a discomfort that follows him in his daily life. The silence also acts like a mirror. reflecting back his own actions or lack of them. Without you to soften the edges of his reality, he starts to notice the moments he failed to appreciate you. Maybe he remembers the nights you reached out to talk and he brushed you off, or the times you offered your support and he treated it as something automatic, not realizing the emotional energy it cost you. The weight of those memories doesn't come all at once. It builds slowly, deepening as he understands that the opportunity to make it right may never come again. In many ways, your absence teaches him the lessons your presence never could. While you were there, he could ignore the urgency to change because the comfort of your presence allowed him to delay self-reflection. Now that comfort is gone and he's forced to confront the fact that people, no matter how patient, loving, or loyal, have limits. Your decision to walk away without looking back shows him that your love wasn't endless in the face of neglect, and that realization can shake the very foundation of his self-image. There's also the undeniable truth that mystery can be far more powerful than explanation. By not giving him closure in the way he might expect, by not telling him exactly why you've chosen to disappear, you create a space in his mind that he will try to fill with his own thoughts and guesses. That mental loop can be relentless, because unanswered questions have a way of resurfacing, especially when they're tied to someone who mattered deeply. In the end, the impact of your absence lies in the fact that it forces him to see the difference between a woman who tolerates and a woman who chooses herself. The quiet you leave behind becomes a lasting reminder that love, respect, and effort are never to be assumed. They must be earned and nurtured. And when they're not, the loss that follows is not only inevitable but unforgettable.